Well, it's hard to win a basketball game if you can't score, Tyler. Do you agree with that statement? First off, just do you agree with that general statement?
You kind of need points to win games, Cade, in any sport
In any sport,
except golf.
yeah, I would say except golf. The Orlando Magic, I mean, we talked about this how many times? What's their MO? Great defense, cannot shoot the three well, going to be a hard time offensively, especially against a good defense, a great defense like Boston has. And this was a game for 2.5 quarters here in game five, but your back was already against the wall. And then Boston does their thing. What do they do well? They can shoot threes. 54% from deep, shot after shot. Tatum goes off for 35. And Boston just absolutely runs away with this thing 120-89. And I want to start by giving some credit to Orlando in this series because you knew it was going to be a two-man offense with Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Everyone knew this. We talked about it in our tier list video. There was going to take a lot to make this a series, and it did not happen. They gave Boston some games that were some back and forth moments, but other than that, this was just another series for Boston to show people, yeah, we're the defending champions. We're going to win this series. We're going to take care of business.
Yeah, it played out exactly how we thought it would, where, Boston was going to be the clear better team, but Orlando would at least give them enough of a challenge to kind of, I say, keep them honest, make sure that they're awake, right? Not
Right.
fall asleep at the wheel. And that's exactly how it went, where Boston, realized at times, like, okay, effort's not there. We got to improve that and be a little bit more consistent throughout the game. And they accomplished that. And Orlando, I mean, they're just outmanned. When you look at these teams just on the stat sheet, in terms of the personnel, there wasn't really a great clear path for Orlando to match up well with Boston, and that's what this series showed.
Yeah, I mean, there were some people who thought there could be some defensive battles in there, and we got that. Game three was the perfect example of that. That was Orlando's notice that, hey, if we could turn this into a rock fight, and I mean the
Yep.
rock fight of all rock fights, you can win. But you look at these other scores, 103-86, 109-100, and then the 107-98 game, the other Boston wins. What do you notice about that in some of those games? Orlando is barely getting there offensively. Boston was slowed down a bit at a few times. You could see that. Orlando could always kind of crawl for a little bit, but Boston would find a way to pull away. It happened in every single game. Orlando, this was just a season of you're not there yet. You'll get there. You're still a young team. You're still putting things together. You have that identity. But in the offseason, please go get someone that can score. Please. You'll be a lot more fun. You'll thank yourself for it.
Well, and it's not even getting like a number one guy. I think Paulo
Exactly.
Banquero's, taking those steps to be that guy. Franz Wagner, what a great compliment he is to Paulo's game. It's just they need to find those third and fourth options, because there's stretches where this team just looks like they are at an impasse with the rim, right? Where it's just like the rim and them are not on good speaking terms. The net, it's just not there. So if you could find a way to kind of unlock a better flow with their offensive attack, the defense is there. Like they
Oh, yeah.
showed that, hey, we could compete with, the best of the best in terms of the defensive side of the ball, make them earn it, which Boston had to do this series. There's no gimmies there really, at least for, all four quarters, right? There's stretches where Boston clearly was a better team, but none of the games were just clear, okay, you know, Boston's just going to run away with this in totality. Here in, game four, it happened a little bit, but even then, it wasn't just all from the get go easy. So if you're Orlando, yeah, you got to do some digging. You got to find another solid scorer, just somebody that could give you a little bit of an option to take some of that pressure off Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, and just to look at it again, you look at the shooting splits here. Game one. We'll start with game one for Orlando. 42% from the field, 37% from three. Not bad, but you only got 86 points out of the deal compared to Boston getting 103. But that was a game where Orlando, remember, we were watching it, we were looking at it saying, hey, Orlando's hanging for a half. And then Boston pulled
Right.
away. Look at game two. Orlando has the advantage when you look at overall field goal percentage, but 24% from three. And again, another game. Orlando plays well for a half. Boston pulls away slightly, but still enough to win by 9. Game three, of course, they win. That was a game where, again, only 25% from three. But Orlando makes a big rally in that game, and Boston's offense just stalled out. Every game kind of with the exception of game three, follows the same flow where it's a tight game for the first half and Boston pulls away. The one time Orlando could catch him and that defense could really set itself up, play A plus plus defense instead of just an A, was the only game Orlando was able to win. And that was still a crawl to get to first. No one, you couldn't even play first to 100 because no one got to 100. I mean, it was just,
Yeah.
I don't want to say rough, but there were some moments where it's just, this is the offense. This does not feel like an NBA caliber offense at times. And
Well, you also got to give a little credit to Boston on that,
you
right?
do,
They're
you
they're
do.
a tough team to penetrate in that sense. But I mean, it just kind of it all worked against Orlando.
It
Like you had
did.
mentioned earlier, they were going to have to pull off multiple rock fights of all rock fights just to push this game to maybe six, or this series, I should say, to maybe six, and didn't happen. But I mean, Boston did what the champs do, so took
They
care of
did.
business, left no doubt, and they look locked in, they look focused. So curious to see how the next round goes.
Yeah, but then they added that final point, game four, 26% from three. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just, if you can get a 3-and-D guy, great. I don't even think you need a real 3-and-D guy. You just need a good 3-point shooter, someone you could spread out that, can be passed out to, someone who could play, knows their role well, and could do it just fine. You don't need, a number one or a number two, like you said. You have those guys. You have the pieces to continue to get better and compete. We talked about this a little bit in the Miami video, but with Milwaukee, with their situation they had, you wonder about the East a little bit, especially that middle of the pack in the East. Not to say Orlando's a middle of the pack team, forever, but with how things played out this year, you start to look at around. Orlando's going to make some moves. I think Orlando is a team that is still on the up and up. I know people said that last year after the Cleveland series. This year they got derailed by injuries. I mean, it was bad for Orlando for a while, injury wise. But they still fought through all that and still showed what they can be here in this series against Boston. And once again, it's kind of weird, Tyler, having another one of these videos where I don't really have a whole lot negative to say that Orlando fans don't already know. Just get something offensively and you'll be a lot better next year if you can just keep some consistency on the offensive side.
yeah. And here's the one thing I'll add that's different compared to the Miami situation, which is weird considering they're in the same state. I don't think people revere Orlando as a prime free agent destination, obviously, especially compared to Miami.
Yeah.
Like it's completely different tones around those franchises for a lot of different reasons.
But they don't
So
have the power of the
they
beaches, Tyler.
right, and they have to really essentially build from the ground up. They're not going to attract some huge free agent, most likely, to Orlando, where Miami, you feel like, has always got a chance to pull off the big free agent. That's just not going to happen in Orlando. And so that makes things a little trickier for them compared to what a Miami or somebody like that could do, where you could just expect, hey, if there's a Giannis Antetokounmpo out there, or KD or somebody like that, you think, okay, big free agent name or along those lines, they've got a shot at him. Probably not going to happen for Orlando. So that makes things a little tougher.
I don't know. I mean, the KD situation's interesting that you bring that up, where it's, what is his price going to be, considering that
Right.
Phoenix is actively trying to get rid of him and move on? And what would Orlando want to give up, knowing that they are a younger team and a 37-year-old, might be 38-year-old at some pretty quickly, Kevin Durant. He doesn't really fit the identity of this Orlando team. It's the only kind of problem I'd have with something like that. But they'll find
Well, and
somebody.
that's the other thing too on the free agency side. Again, talk about Miami versus Orlando. Just in that, like, I feel Kevin Durant would be a lot more open to the idea of going to a Miami, despite
Yes.
you could argue maybe they're not quite as settled. Of okay, we know what our core pieces are. Like they kind of do, but there's been more questions about it. I guess you could say compared to previous years. But it seems like I think he'd be far more open to go to Miami as it would opposed to Orlando.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a again kind of just the situation. We said it earlier. Say it again. This is just what happens when you play a great team like Boston. It doesn't really say a whole lot about you. It's more about what Boston's able to do and flex their muscle on it they'll be on their way. Probably, I'm going to say probably going to get New York. New York did lose today. We'll have to see how that Knicks Pistons series goes. That could get interesting down the line here. Again,
People are starting to wake up to the fact that Kate Cunningham is indeed not a bust.
yeah, people have had to deal with that, but that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about Boston and Orlando, but that we got it. We'll get to that video down the line. If you want to see that video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, always be notified when new videos come out, because that will be interesting. Either the Pistons are going to make this thing really spicy, or they're going to make things just moderately spicy. Winning today was already big for them, but again, if you made it this far, feel free to like the video as well. Leave a comment down below, tell us what you think Orlando should do. Or, if you're a Boston fan and watching this, how far do you think the Celtics are going to go? Are you going back to back? Is it going to happen? It might happen, Tyler. We'll have to talk about that at some point. Possibly. We don't know. But also, not just here on YouTube, also on Spotify. So feel free to go on over there. Same thing. Guys who stare at stats on Spotify, rate us 5 stars over there. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also rate us 5 stars since you're listening right now. But folks, until next time, Orlando, it's time to put the fries in the bag.
Put them in the bag.
And until then, have a good one, everybody.